I love music. I love music first. Music is the most important thing when it comes to all the things that I do. If it's not the music first, then nothing else matters. I'm from right here. I'm from Crown Heights, Brooklyn. I was born in Panama, but I was raised right here in Crown Heights, Brooklyn, since I was 2 months old. For me, Brooklyn growing up was probably one of the best experiences that I could imagine life would be without a father, growing up in the hood, because the block I'm from took care of the kids who were on the block, and we grew up as a family, so we never felt like we missed too much of anything. There was probably only two people, maybe one or two people on the block who had a father, so everybody else who was older than us acted as big brothers, and they took care of us, and the block really took care of each other. So growing up for me was dope. I don't know if Brooklyn taught me anything more than it taught me to be resilient. I come from the most important borough in New York City. It's the borough that every other borough was scared to come to. It's the blue collar borough. It's the borough with the people that work the hardest. It's one of the biggest melting pots. And to me, what you had to do was be resilient here. And if anything that I learned from this place where I'm from was to be resilient. And it let me know that no matter where I go, I felt absolutely, perfectly, positively great being from Brooklyn. Because no matter what I did, no matter where I went, if I said I was from Brooklyn, it felt different than someone else who was like, oh, I'm from New York. Yeah, New York is one thing. Brooklyn is that other thing.
What makes this house special to you?
What makes this house special is this is the house that when I moved out of my mom and my grandmother's house, this is the house I moved to. And you don't know if you're a man until you're living by yourself and you're taking care of yourself. And I lived here and I took care of myself, and I probably created some of the best moments in my musical career right here. I produced some of the biggest records I ever made out of this house. And when I say I produced them in the house, it means that I built a studio in the back of the house, and instead of going to someone else's studio and saying, we're gonna pay and we're gonna make these records here, I brought the artists to my house. I brought Akinelli, I brought Jay-Z, I brought Notorious B.I.G, I brought Puff, I brought Mad Skills, I brought practically every artist. Das Effects, I brought them here. They're from 2 blocks. Their producers were from up that on the next block, but they were here when we were making their album. You know what I'm saying? Like I did most of the recording that I did in those 90s right here. And it was extremely creative time, and everybody that came here was very, very creative. So it felt like a party all the time. We didn't know what we were doing. It's just that it was coming out right. I mean, if I look back at it now, it's really amazing to think that I got to work with the 2 guys that I consider the 2 best MCs and rappers. It's just that when it was happening, you didn't think about it like that. We just thought, we just want to make a great record. And I wanted to make great records on Jay-Z. And I wanted people to believe that the same thing that I believed about him, I wanted everybody to believe it. Like Biggie didn't believe it until I made him believe it, until I showed it to him enough. And then they get together and make arguably the best collaboration rap record ever. And I made the music for it, so it's pretty much one of the best honors in my career.
And to be clear, they made that here, or did they make that here in this house?
What was made here on Brooklyn's Finest was the track, and it wasn't called Brooklyn's Finest at that precise moment. At that moment, it was called No More Mr. Nice Guy. And then when I introduced Big to Jay is when things got real different, and it became, we're gonna add Big to the record and we're gonna change it, and then it became Brooklyn's Finest. But the genesis, the making the track happened right here. And then we recorded the vocals in D&D and Giant Studio. I think what stands out to me about being from One Crown Heights but living on this block was, at the time when I was living here, it was about 60% Hasidic Jews, and they really wanted the neighborhood. So they would come knocking at your door to try and buy the houses from you. And I thought it was hilarious. I used to hold conversations with my neighbors who were on both sides Hasidic. Well, on my left side was Hasidic Jews, and I used to ask them all kinds of questions. And you never really felt like there was any kind of tension or anything when you met them. But when they started knocking on your door asking about a house, it was like, wait a minute. But, again, I was young. I was getting to the money, doing what I was doing in the music business, and I didn't pay it the attention that I should have until they just offered way too much. So I was just like, okay. But we had fun. Everybody would come here. Either they were coming here to hang out, we were coming here to play dice, we were coming here to have barbecues, we were coming here to make records. I had producers coming here to work on machines that, because I had a studio, it was probably the most fun that I've had being a young black man in New York City. If I had to say how I got into music, it would probably have to say because my grandmother listened to records every day, and I lived with her 4 blocks up. And she listened to records every day, and then when I was about 4 or 5, I actually played a record for her. I figured out how to get the record to play, but I was mystified when I put the needle on the record. I did not know how it happened, but once I did it, I didn't want to let anybody else in the house be the person who played the records anymore. So I kind of, commandeered the stereo. I played the stereo all the time, and I would listen to radio. And as I got older, my uncle had 2 turntables in his house. He wasn't a DJ, but he had 2 turntables and he had this mixer. And I used to go over there all the time, and he didn't mind me playing it. So I used it until I learned what I was hearing on the radio. And I learned how to DJ by playing these 2 turntables. And from that point on, there was no going back. I was going to be a DJ for the rest of my life. It's just that I'm really, really a good DJ. So that's the only reason why I'm still a DJ for the rest of my life. To ask me why I do what I do would have to start from the genesis. I played the records because I love music. I love music more than I love DJing. I love music more than I love producing. I love music more than I love doing any of these things that I do within the music. So that is the reason why I will never stop DJing. I will never stop producing if I feel like I want to make a track. I will never stop listening. I think there is something special about hearing a brand new record every day. I feel like if you're not trying to hear everything and figure out the reasons why every record is made, then you should probably quit DJing. But while I still feel good about hearing a new song, whether I like it or not, just trying to figure out why was it made? What did the producer do? Why did he do this? Why did this rapper say this? Why did the singer sing this way? Why can't she sing? All of those things go into me loving what I do. I love music. I love music first. Music is the most important thing when it comes to all the things that I do. If it's not the music first, then nothing else matters. There is no culture on the planet that doesn't have a form of music in it. So music and culture go hand in hand. Real cultures have belief systems. Real cultures have music. Real cultures have an entertainment center. Real cultures have arts. Real cultures have rules. Real cultures have foods. They have all of these things that build the culture. You can't have a culture without having a music. Music is the first thing that a kid learns, and it's the easiest thing for a kid to learn. Think about a kid. A kid learns his ABCs by singing it. He doesn't learn it by telling it to him. He learns it by singing it. That's music. If you don't have music, you damn near are killing half of life away, because music drives your feelings. Music is a form of expression. What Brooklyn artists have done, like I could start at Big Daddy Kane or Frankie B or Vince. Vandy C or Jimmy Spicer or Cutmaster DC or people like that. But then I'd be wrong for not starting at Frank Sinatra. So I don't have to talk about Brooklyn's importance in music. I can talk about the music being important to life. That's way more important. I think the most important thing I could tell any kid that wants to be a DJ is Love the music first. Because if you love the music, then you'll appreciate it and you'll play it with care. That's the big thing that's missing with some of these DJs. They don't actually care for the music. They just care about DJing. So then it comes off like a jukebox. If you care about the music, you'll play it creatively and it'll be a totally different experience, and people will peg you to be a better DJ if you care about the music. I don't know if this answer is a straight only for Brooklyn answer. I think it's a human being answer. And the reason I say that is because if you're making something of yourself and you just keep giving it back to someone else, it's like if you make some money and all you're doing is renting, the person whose house you're renting are the ones who gaining the equity in their house, and you don't gain any equity. At some point, you have to sit down and say, well, I want my own house. It's better for you to own something because then it brings you back credit. It builds up some kind of something that you can give back to your kids if you have. It protects your finances to buy a house because you can turn around and if you're ever in trouble, sell your house. You can, it makes sense to own. Plus, haven't we been here long enough and not owned? The most important thing for us as a people is to educate ourselves about ourselves. It's to educate our friends about ourselves. It's to educate our people about ourselves. Because if you can't know about yourself, you don't walk around with a sense of pride. If you're not going to walk around with a sense of pride, there's not going to be a sense of unity. If there's no unity, you can't change anything. That's that.
Kind of like a voice for the old Brooklyn, someone like yourself. That's why, like, as soon as I came up with the company, I came down with a list of people, and you were the first person that I thought of. And so
The only
like
one
me,
who keeps
me.
it this Brooklyn.
So it's like, I created like a Mount Rushmore of people, and I'm like, I have to get Kent. You know what I'm saying? Like, if I can find a way to get him, that'd be perfect. Like, I reached out to you, Tony, and he said this number. I said, Tony, there's no way, you know what I mean, I could do that. So I appreciate the fact that you out here and you actually giving me the opportunity to interview you. I really appreciate that.
It's all good.
Because it's like, I'm from Brownsville, so I already know what it is. What does BK before Barclays mean to you?
It means BK before Barclays means old Brooklyn, just the way it sounds. It means old Brooklyn. It means before the changing, before the real gentrification. It means the real feeling. But you to be fair, there was a BK before that BK before Barclays.
Absolutely.
So everything is a cycle. So there was a time when we couldn't walk around this neighborhood that free. And then we could. And then they decided to take the neighborhood back. You can't be mad at it. It's a cycle. It happens like East New York was a white Italian neighborhood, and then our people kind of moved into it and appropriated it, and that's a change. So everything changes. It's all cycles. If I had to say what BK before Barclays really is exactly the way it sounds. It's Brooklyn before the Barclays, because the Barclays made a big difference. So it's a train yard still being there. It's just totally a different idea, but it's still Brooklyn. It's still a different Brooklyn. It's still Brooklyn, but it's definitely the BK before Barclays. Just the way it sounds is exactly what it means. I think the only thing I probably really want to say is, if you get the chance to do something that you like, that could take care of you, go do it so that you're not unhappy for the rest of your life. If you can love what you're doing and it could take care of you and your family, go do it. Don't get caught up in the hang-ups of the stresses of life, because it's all small shit. So why get all caught up in shit that's just really all small shit? Just Go live your life and do great things and be as great as possible and try to have fun while you're doing it. I got stabbed around the corner from my house. I got shot over near Washington. Washington and Karl. I'm from Brooklyn, man. Shit ain't that easy around here. I'm a happy Jack because I'm living, but trust me, it wasn't sweet. Where I grew up was not sweet. Yeah. Again, Pappy Mason lived around the corner, like not a whole block away, around the corner from me, and he was the homie. He was the big homie. So Pappy Mason was he's top gunner in the Supreme. Well, he ran with Fat Cat, and he was no joke, absolutely no joke. He became famous for being allegedly killing a cop in Queens. But I'm not going to say he did that. I don't know what he did. I don't know what happened. I say allegedly because he's still the homie. He's still the big homie, so I don't know. I'm not saying nothing like that. Allegedly. So, okay.
In fact, gotta get a photo, but I get a photo.
You taking a picture?
Probably what his is the main one.